Hello, I'm your instructor, Midori Friedbauer. I'm happy to finally be able to get on camera so that you can all put a face to a name. I am a real person. I created this presentation so I would have an opportunity to address some of the most common problems I've seen in student writing, with the idea that if you don't make these simple mistakes, you will have time to make new and more interesting mistakes. Learning is all about trying to improve over and over again. So with that, let's get started. We're going to go ahead and start with common misconceptions. These are common mistakes in student writing that a lot of students think makes their writing better, or they don't know how to do differently because they just don't have the skills that would prevent these mistakes from happening. I want to talk about these things first because I think that they are some of the easiest mistakes in writing to fix. And I think that if we address these now, you guys will be able to make better and more interesting mistakes in your writing going forward. And we can really dig into how to make you the best writers possible if we get through all of the simple little mistakes that every writer makes when they start out. The first big mistake I see a lot is tell and tell, which is when students leave out any details or examples that would make their writing better. Basically, they just repeat the same thing over and over again using different adjectives that are synonymous with one another. Let's look at an example of this on the next page. Here, a student has written a silly example that is easy to follow and pretty inoffensive. The student wrote, "I really like cats. They're really cool, in my opinion. Cats are especially cool because they are amazing creatures. That's all I can say. I grew up with cats in my home and it was a good experience." I would tell this imaginary student to provide some evidence for why cats are cool. I want some facts and examples. Describe what the cats are capable of and why it is so cool that the cat can do that. The first example I can think of is cats have hooks on their tongues that allow them to clean their fur so they do not need their owners to bathe them. That is a cool pet. Do you see how I gave an example that showed why cats are cool, while the student example is just repeating positive phrases that don't really say anything? The next mistake is cosmetic filler. I see this mistake a lot in longer essays. This mistake is when a student wants to sound more professional, so they start grabbing onto a lot of big jargony words or adding a lot of transition phrases to make their essay longer. These students are replacing substance with cosmetic filler, trying to make the essay look better than it actually is, because the work of thinking of more substantial reasons or examples for their essay is just too much work for them. They're just trying to meet the deadline with enough words on the page. Let's look at an example of cosmetic filler. So the student here wrote, "The feline species, often referred to as cats, is a paragon of grace, elegance, and enigmatic allure. Their lithe frames, their piercing eyes, and their enigmatic demeanor captivate the human imagination. Cats possess an innate sense of independence, a quiet dignity, and a remarkable capacity for self-preservation." I would tell the student to make sure they understand the words they are using because they should not sound so repetitive. I want you to take a look at the first few lines. Feline species. Okay, we're talking about cats. You don't need to say often referred to as cats. You're just throwing in more words to make the essay longer. Let's also look, they're talking about grace and elegance. Those are basically referring to the same thing. Let's see what else in here is kind of repetitive. They're talking about quiet dignity. Again, that's basically that elegance, grace idea. They say enigmatic twice. Very repetitive. They're using too many synonymous words. I would also ask the student to make a point and then expand on it instead of writing at length about the same point, that cats are beautiful and graceful. I would suggest maybe incorporating something about cats and famous artwork. Maybe there's a particular cat that's more beautiful than all of the other cats. There's a lot of different directions you could go with this, but you don't need to just keep explaining in different words that cats are beautiful. The next mistake is forgetting the map. When students say they're going to cover certain topics in their introduction but never arrive at those topics in their body paragraph, they have forgotten the map. Your introduction should tell the reader exactly where you're going, when you're going to get there, and what the conclusion is going to tell them by the end. I want to know why I'm reading the whole essay from the beginning so that I understand what I'm looking for as evidence and I have a better mindset going into it. And then you as a writer, don't make promises you're going to break. If I sit down and your introduction tells me that I'm about to get certain information and I read through that whole essay and I don't get that information I was looking for, that's really disappointing. So let's make sure that if we say we're going to do something in the introduction, that we actually produce those results in the body paragraphs. In this example, we have a 3-paragraph essay. I feel like essay is a strong word for what this writing sample is, but the student introduces an idea in the intro, but never develops it. Cats are the ideal companions for those seeking a low-maintenance, independent pet. Unlike dogs who require frequent walks and attention, cats are content, to spend hours alone grooming themselves and exploring their surroundings. Their quiet nature and ability to self-soothe make them perfect for busy households or individuals who prefer a more solitary lifestyle. Cats are also incredibly adaptable creatures. They can thrive in a variety of environments, from small apartments to spacious homes. Additionally, cats are known for their intelligence and curiosity. They can quickly learn new tricks and often enjoy playing interactive games with their human companions. In conclusion, cats are the superior choice for a pet. Their low-maintenance nature, adaptability, and intelligence make them ideal companions for a wide range of individuals. While dogs may have their own unique charms, cats offer a distinct set of benefits that make them the ultimate pet choice. Now, I want you to notice in the introduction, they said that they were going to tell us about how cats are ideal companions, specifically because they are low maintenance and independent. But then in the body paragraph in the middle, they go to adaptable. Instead of independent or low maintenance, they talk about adaptable. And then they start talking about intelligence and curiosity. That has nothing to do with the information promised in the introduction. And then, for some reason, in the conclusion, we're talking about dogs again and comparing cats and dogs, which kind of ties into the introduction, but we didn't compare cats and dogs at all in the body paragraph. So why are we still talking about dogs? Don't know. That's why this is an example of a student forgetting the map. This next part of the presentation is part 2 on logical fallacies. Logical fallacies are the opposite of critical thinking. Critical thinking is where we have ideas, we have scientific process, we have good research, we have literature review, we're thinking, we're synthesizing, we're asking thoughtful questions. But logical fallacies are little mental shortcuts that our brains like to use to save energy, but they're lazy thinking and they get us the wrong answers. So we want to avoid using any of these logical fallacies in the way that we think, in the way that we read critically, and the way that we write critically. So pay close attention to this stuff, because not only is this going to help you in English classes, but it's going to help you in life in general. Slippery slope. This is assuming that if one thing happens, something else automatically will follow, even though there's no reason why it absolutely would happen that way. I think from the example, you're going to realize that this slippery slope fallacy is something that parents do all the time when they're telling you not to do something. And I hope that you enjoy the next example. So in this example, the student says, if we let kids have sugary snacks, they'll start eating candy all day. Then they'll develop cavities and have to go to the dentist. Next thing you know, they'll need braces and expensive dental work. It's all downhill from there. I would ask the student what things could prevent the situation from escalating, like in their example, and then prove that none of those prevention measures could possibly occur in their writing. So if they say that the next thing is the child will need braces, why would they need braces? What does that have to do with sugary snacks? Why can't they have an alternative to braces like Invisalign or something like that? If there's a way to prevent the slide from continuing, there is no reason to assume that the slide will happen. In this logical fallacy, someone is assuming one small sample proves the whole thing is also bad. Although you could do this the other way as well. You could easily assume that because one of something is good, all of them would be good. It's called hasty generalization. In this example, the student wrote, I saw a squirrel eating a peanut butter sandwich today. That means all squirrels must love peanut butter sandwiches. I would ask the student to verify their assumption with a larger sample size. One example of something is not good evidence. There needs to be many instances of something occurring to provide good evidence, and compare the reasoning to the scientific method. Does this meet that standard of scientific reasoning? Is a sample size of 1 ever okay in science? No. So why would we take that for evidence in an English paper? We need to have multiple examples, not just one. I call this one the fake butterfly effect. A butterfly effect is when something small has huge rippling effects as one thing influences the next in a cascade of situations. So the saying goes that somewhere a butterfly flapped its wings, and on the other side of the world, the ripple effect is that there's a hurricane somewhere else. A fake butterfly effect is when something happened before an unrelated event and people assume that the two events are related. In this example, the student writes, I noticed a pigeon pooped on my car right before my check engine light came on. The pigeon must have caused the car's engine to fail. I would ask the student to use some type of process to connect the two events and show causation. Correlation, two things being similar or having some cursory connection, is not the same thing as causation. Some processes have to occur for one event to cause another event to happen. So identify and describe the process in your writing. This logical fallacy is the origin fallacy, assuming that a person or thing's origins determine their value, character, or nature. This is the fallacy where you think that because something came out of a certain situation, that original situation affects the value of the item. Something that I see a lot of people do is say, I don't want something secondhand, so I'm not going to buy anything that was previously used because originally it belonged to somebody else that didn't want it, and that somehow changes the item's value. It's not true. The item is just a neutral item and it has a certain value to you regardless if it's new or if it's used, as long as it's in the same condition. In this example, the student wrote, "This song is terrible. That artist who cheated on his girlfriend made it, so I won't even listen to it." I would ask this student what they don't like about the song itself and focus less on who made the song. Is the song too repetitive? Does it have silly lyrics? Is it not poetic? Do you dislike the rhyme scheme? Critical thinking produces reasons. Logical fallacies produce shortcuts. The artist cheating on his girlfriend has nothing to do with what the song sounds like unless the song is specifically about cheating on his girlfriend. And then the reason wouldn't be you don't like the song because of the actions of the artist. The reason would be because you don't agree with the subject of the story in the song's lyrics. I hope that makes some sense. This logical fallacy is called circular argument. It's restating the argument rather than proving it. And I hope that you notice that this circular argument is really similar to the mistake of tell and tell from the beginning when I was talking about common misconceptions. It's not an argument to just repeat more synonyms. So you want to pick something new or provide a reason, not just double down on the same word said different ways. Don't pick up a thesaurus and think that a thesaurus full of similar words is actually proving anything in an argument. In this example, the student wrote, "TikTok should be banned because it isn't okay for people to watch it." I would ask this student to give reasons why it isn't okay for people to watch TikTok, because saying that it should be banned and it isn't okay for people to watch is just rephrasing the original claim. So if you break this down, the conclusion is TikTok should be banned, but they based it on the premise of it isn't okay for people to watch it. The conclusion and the premise are basically the same thing. Things that are banned are not okay for people to watch, and it's not okay for people to watch banned things. Do you see how that's just repeating itself? Circular argument. Either or. This logical fallacy is the mistake of thinking there are only two extreme conclusions, oversimplifying the two sides and refusing to imagine a compromise in the middle. So here I used an example of two arrows going in opposite directions and there's no overlap in the areas that they cover. That's that either or thinking. You'll see this a lot in politics because people have a certain bill that they're trying to pass or stop from passing. So in politics with bills, it either passes or it doesn't pass. So that's why you can get those two extreme conclusions. But in most things in life, there is a compromise, and all you have to do is go back into the language of the bill and rework the language to come up with something that makes both sides happy. And you can do this with all sorts of things. You can do this in business meetings, you can do this with family, you can do this with friends. There are lots of ways to compromise and meet in the middle. In this example of either or, the student wrote, "You either love cats or you hate them. There's no other option. If you don't like cats, you hate them." I've never heard a person say cats are just okay. They're divisive creatures. I would ask the student to reconsider if there really isn't any compromise between these two positions. Is it possible someone has never owned a cat and doesn't have an opinion? Is it possible someone might be afraid of cats because one scratched them, but they think that cats are cute and like videos of them? Life is full of gray areas, and almost always there's some ground in between every two positions. This one has a Latin name, ad hominem. The mistake of saying, "take a look at this guy," instead of addressing the argument, usually resulting in mudslinging. This is one you see in politics a lot. People will say, the person on the other side of the argument is just the worst person ever. Look at how they look at how they act, look at these things that they did in the past, instead of actually addressing what the two people disagree on. They just attack each other as people, and that's what that means. They're attacking hominem, as in like Homo sapien, the person. In this writing example, the student said, "That lecture was terrible. I can't believe I paid for that. The whole time I was looking at the professor's silly hair. Who wears a big bow on top of their head like that? Only someone who doesn't know what they're talking about." I would ask this student what the professor said during their lecture, which was so horrible. I would tell them to reconsider their position, imagining that they had not ever seen the silly bow on top of that head. Would their opinion of the lecture be different if it was from a professor who was dressed appropriately for the situation? You know, if the same professor took that bow off of their head, would that have been a better lecture? Probably not. So let's talk about what happened during that lecture that was so terrible. The bandwagon fallacy. Did your guardian ever ask you if you'd jump off a cliff just because everyone else in your friend group was? Well, if you did jump off that cliff with your friends, you would have fallen victim to the bandwagon effect. Bandwagon appeal is when something seems more desirable because everyone else seems to do or have whatever it is that they're doing or having. Something that I think of a lot with this one is commercials. A lot of commercials will show a lot of different types of people enjoying a product or a service. And what they're trying to say is, look, everybody else likes it. You're going to like our product too. You should buy it. And that is bandwagon logical fallacy. Just because other people like it doesn't mean you're going to like it. You're your own unique person. You might not have something specifically in common with the people that do like that product. You might have different preferences. So this bandwagon effect is a logical fallacy. In this student example, the student wrote, "TikTok is wonderful because so many people use it. More people use TikTok than MySpace or Vine. I have an account, all my family members have accounts, and we all enjoy it, so you should download it too." I would ask this student to describe the elements of TikTok that they prefer and how it might be beneficial to someone. The fact that many people prefer TikTok does not mean it is beneficial to download. Many people may have bad taste, so stating that a lot of people do or like something does not mean that it is good. Although I love TikTok, so this one's a hard example for me to get through. Red herring. In this logical fallacy, the mistake is changing the subject or getting distracted by a bright red, fast moving object. That's kind of the joke with this cute, fluffy red bird here. It's distracting you from the point. So in this student example, the student wrote, the opposition to my point will tell you that nuclear power is one of the safest, greenest energy sources on the planet. However, they are all associated with pineapple on pizza movement, and they should not be trusted. I would tell the student to prove the opposite of the claims that their opposition has made instead of trying to change the subject to who their opposition is associated with in their personal lives. So, for example, this one could also be an ad hominem attack because they're saying, hey, get a load of this guy. They are with the pineapple on pizza movement. Don't trust this guy. Anything this guy says, can't trust it. So, this is two logical fallacies in one. They're distracting you with a personal attack. So the distraction is a red herring, and the personal attack is the ad hominem. The straw man. In this logical fallacy, you pretend your debate opponent is a straw man with silly, illogical ideas. Now you only address those oversimplified ideas instead of your actual opponent's logical ideas. This is also a distraction technique in a way. You're saying, don't listen to the opposition. You can't trust them. Listen to me. This is what my opposition actually thinks, and here's why they're wrong. But most of the time when this happens, the straw man is not a good representation of what the opposition actually thinks or says. So in this student example, the student wrote, the opposing side thinks that we can just give things away for free and that the free market is in the way of everyone having free things delivered to their doorstep by robots. That's nonsense. People will always need fulfilling work to do in their lives, and it costs resources to create goods. We can't all just sit at home receiving packages full of free stuff. So I would advise the student to look at real arguments from the opposing side and address those concerns. What they've done in this piece of writing is they've made up a fake person and said that the fake person said that everything should be free and we should all sit on our butts all day and not do anything. And I would push back and say, okay, so the people who are saying the free market is not a good thing, what did they actually say? And can you address those arguments specifically? I'd tell the student that they need to use sources to prove the opposition argued a certain point. Don't just make up points and pretend that someone actually said them and then call the imaginary person wrong for the argument that you supplied and made up. Also, after that, I would recommend spending more time defending the free market as a good idea rather than attacking the opposite side. You need to prove that you're right. It's harder thinking of ways to prove that you're right than it is to say someone else is wrong. Everybody else can be a Monday morning quarterback and say, I wouldn't have thrown that. That was a terrible play. I can't believe they did that. What were they thinking? Hindsight is 2020. But tell me what you would do right now and why you're right now and what evidence you have to support that. We are almost to the end. This logical fallacy is false equivalence. It's comparing one minor offense to a larger crime using unfair, dramatic, or inaccurate comparisons. So in this final example, the student writes, I really think not liking cats is a crime. I'd rather sit next to a money laundering mafia boss than someone who hates cats. For this, I would recommend this student make a pro and con list of each part of the comparison. Part A, people who don't like cats, and part B, money laundering mafia bosses. And use the pro-con sheets to decide whether the two sides are truly equivalent or if maybe one is not as bad as the other. So that is the last logical fallacy example. This presentation is wrapping up. Thank you so much for watching it, and I hope that you have a great week.